did you hear? Brian has always been such an ambassador for Lutheran World Relief. Do you remember that? I remember that. And here's what we always used to say, Brian. It is a really well-run organization, and the overhead, the percentage of overhead, he's a former accountant, is impressive. You said that almost every time, so thank you. Can't hear me? Oh.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right. How's that sounding? Can you hear me?
Okay. And is this better? Yes, this is better. Thank you.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay,
better?
good.
Okay.
You know, you have to invite your mom and dad so that they can tell you that the people in the audience can't hear you. Thanks for being here. Well, come on in and have a chair. Well, this morning, we are very honored. I'm very honored as a board member of Lutheran World Relief and Corus International to have Ambassador Daniel Speckhard here. And he is the CEO and president of this impressive organization. And so let me share with you what our plan is. We're going to first show a video, just so that you kind of are reminded about this organization. And then we're going to introduce Daniel. And of course, you've seen me up here before. I always like to know their story. So we're going to find out where he's from, and I even think what his dad did is kind of meaningful as a part of his vocational story. And how did he wind up in this role anyway? He lives in Washington, D.C., and I want to thank you and partner Alex for being here today. And we also have 2 staff members from LWR. David First is in the back, and Kevin Bonney, if you'll raise, thank you. They're Minneapolis-based, but Alex and Daniel flew out for the weekend. So we're going to hear about his journey, and then I've got 4 or 5 questions, and then I'll do the roving reporter at the end where you can ask some questions. So does that work for everybody as a plan? Good. Well, with that, Dave, let's roll the first video. We've got 2, and this one's about 2.5 minutes long. I've let these visitors know that this is a new technology Sunday. We're just lucky to have AV and audio, right? I'm sure the pastors were a little nervous this morning, but looks like they're going to get it to roll. I see it on the screen back there anyway.
While they're doing that, would you like to talk about a little bit of the background of how I ended up here?
We sure could. Should we do that first? Okay.
While they're getting ready.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I know you were interested in that. I actually am the son of a pastor's kid. My father was a Lutheran pastor, but it goes back a lot longer than that. My great-great-grandfather came to the United States in the mid-1800s, maybe like many of your ancestors, and he became a pastor in Michigan and started the first faith-based deaf school in the United States. So
really?
It's a pretty cool thing, yeah. And so pastors were part of my history. My grandfather was a pastor in Wisconsin, and I was born in Clintonville, Wisconsin. And then my dad was as well. But my dad decided to become a teacher after being a pastor for a while, and became a German teacher and took me overseas. I was 10 years old. They dumped me into a classroom where I didn't speak the language and said, swim. And it turned out I loved it. I loved about learning about different cultures and different places and seeing how big the world was. And so I went to the University of Wisconsin, close by. Sorry, I'm a Badger fan, but I do like the Gophers too. And when I graduated, this sense that many of you probably who are Lutherans are of service being part of your calling, whether it's in a professional capacity or in your volunteer capacity, it's so deeply rooted that I just wanted to give back. So I went into public service, found my way to the State Department. I lived overseas in places like Belarus and Iraq for several years, Belgium, and Greece, and got to be an ambassador for our country. It felt really good to be able to serve the United States, serve our people, and be in a presentation mode of representing our country overseas. But I learned after 30 years of doing that, that change wasn't happening as fast as I wanted. You probably saw some of these things I worked on. The collapse of the Soviet Union, I was hoping we'd bring democracy to Russia. That didn't really happen. Some of the places I worked, like Iraq, there's still challenges in the Middle East. And I realized that if you want to make a change in the world, you got to start at the grassroots. Change happens with people. It doesn't happen with systems. And so I wanted to get where that change was happening. And Lutheran World Relief was looking for a new leader, and I jumped at the chance because we work at the grassroots with individual people and families. And when you start there, you can change whole countries. So I'm excited about that. That's how I got to this point.
Great. Thank you. Can you tell everybody how many countries are you currently in?
We're in, have offices in about 30 countries and programs in about 35 countries around the world. We are working in Latin America, primarily Central America and Northern Latin America. And Middle East, we're in Lebanon. We've worked in Syria and Yemen there as well. And in Africa, all around Central and Eastern and Western Africa. And then some programs in Asia, in the Philippines, in Indonesia, and one of my favorites is Nepal.
That's great. Thank you.
I think they got something for us here.
Should we try it? You might get sick of those mug shots by the end here. Hey. So we just need sound.
Extreme poverty. Where there is suffering, your love is there. Since 1945, following the Second World War, Lutheran World Relief has worked ceaselessly to end poverty, injustice, and human suffering. We provide aid in emergencies and help families restore their lives. We partner with communities to build and grow rural.
It was going great.
It was going good. I think you get the idea.
Earthquakes and flooding, conflict and violence, hunger and extreme poverty. Where there is suffering, your love is there. Since 1945, following the Second World War, Lutheran World Relief has worked ceaselessly to end poverty, injustice, and human suffering. We provide aid in emergencies and help families restore their lives. We partner with communities to build and grow rural economies. We break the cycle of poverty so families and communities can thrive. For nearly 80 years, you have responded to God's call to be the body of Christ in the world. Because of you, we reach further, stay longer, and stand faithfully alongside our neighbors in need. Because of you, hundreds of thousands of families have been comforted by LWR quilts and kits. Because of you, the hardest to reach neighbors in Peru are leading their communities out of poverty. Because of you, a mother in Mali is rejoicing that her child has enough food to eat and grow after being at the brink of death. Because of you, a family in Ukraine has access to mobile medical clinics and can get life-saving health care despite living amid ongoing violence. Because of you, hope is being restored.
Я вдячна дуже. У мене немає просто вже.
A los pueblos más olvidados han ayudado. Muchas gracias, Nina.
Well, that was quite the
Yeah,
ending,
that
huh?
was a big bang. Big bang.
And with Well, I think that kind of sets the stage, though. I would like to personally thank all of you from Trinity, because Brian knows, and people that have been members here for many years, like Christy Morse, that Trinity has supported Lutheran World Relief for decades. But especially the last 4 years, our outreach committee has gotten very serious about supporting LWR. And if you remember, Jill led a big Lenten project last spring, and down in the big, what do you call this space? Great room. We made personal care kits, and Bob got a snowmobile trailer, and we drove those over to St. Paul, where the big facility is, and dropped those off. I was very proud to deliver those on behalf of our church. So thank you for what you've done in your time, talent, and treasure through the years here. And we just want to keep this going. So it's why we invited Daniel. So could we go to the next slide, if you would, please? Yes, thank you. Could you tell us a particular story about how the mission of LWR is kind of illustrated?
Yeah. Well, we put this slide up because this guy's name is Gabriel. This is a country called South Sudan. It's in the northern middle part of Africa. It was a country that has gone through tragedy after tragedy because it used to be one country, and then they had a civil war. The Muslim Arabs are in the north, the Christian African, sub-Saharan Africans are in the south, and that country just tore itself apart in the late 1990s as the Christians wanted independence. He lost his leg, Gabriel did, during that period. He stepped on a landmine. He was following a bunch of his friends, thought he got the right way through the path through the field, but didn't get it, and lost his leg. He had to recover, was fortunately taken to Kenya, where he spent 10 years trying to recover and get back, but he loved his country. He loved South Sudan. He was so proud of their independence. Came back, and then about 10 years ago, there was massive flooding in South Sudan. Literally, 19 of the 20 provinces were underwater in this country. He lost everything, and when the floods resided, Lutheran World Relief was there. We helped his family. We provided seeds for vegetable garden. He gave him some food, but then helped him start growing his own food. With the teaching that we gave him on how to grow vegetables, he was able to grow enough for his family to eat and actually sell some in the local community to provide some extra income for his children. He was so excited about what he was able to do. He was just such an enthusiastic person, a person who overcomes hardship, that we said, we want you to be a staff member for Lutheran World Relief. And he became one of our field workers doing this same program for other communities around South Sudan. He has to walk. South Sudan and these provinces here are oftentimes have swampy and lots of water. That's the path that you see him walking on. He'll walk oftentimes 10 to 20 kilometers a day to get to a village, and then he'll do his training for the people in those villages. Many, many of these people are widowed women because there's been so many people who've lost their lives, especially the men during first the real war, and then now there's a civil war inside South Sudan with different parts competing. Why I wanted to show you this, though, is not just how he overcame this resilience and how we helped him do that, but because what we did and what Lutheran World Relief does differently than a lot of organizations is it's not just about bringing something from the United States and giving it to them. It's about helping empower them to help themselves. And what's more powerful than taking a guy like this and saying, you can help the community. And now he's the guy showing other people and telling them how he did it. And you can imagine if this guy shows up at your tent and says, you can make a better life for yourself, you're going to believe him, right? Given the adversity he's had. So that's why I'm so excited about Lutheran World Relief, why I get excited every day I go to work, because the support you guys are giving is going straight in the hands of Gabriel and helping so many women and children in that country.
So, Daniel, what is one need in the world that hasn't garnered much public awareness that you kind of have seen in your work and your travels?
Yeah. You and I were talking about this a little earlier, Kathi, that I'm always sensitive, don't want to get in the middle of politics, but I do know that with the Iran war, many of the people that we're supporting are really suffering. because you probably noticed the price of gas went up here in the United States. Well, that's because the Straits of Hormuz have closed. Well, it's not just oil that goes through the Straits of Hormuz, it's food. It's goods of all types. And most of these countries that we require on imported, live off of imports, right? And so especially rice or grains or other things. And when that stuff gets expensive, just like gas, that's getting more expensive. You don't feel here in the United States because your food stuff comes right from here. But if you were relying on your grains and rice from coming overseas, you'd be noticing huge price jumps there as well. The ones that are hurt the most, that don't have extra money to pay, are the ones that have to go with one less meal a day or no meal for a day, are those people that we're serving. So that's what I've noticed the most, and that people aren't aware of how it's the poorest countries that are hurt the most when these transportation routes get cut. It happened during COVID, as you remember, as well, when we had all that transportation disruption. It was the poorest countries that not only had the COVID problem, but then they had a problem of hunger and support in their communities and the economic cost of living in these places.
It's a good reminder. What do you foresee happening in this sector? When we go to board meetings, there's lots of acronyms. INGO is the one that I had to learn quickly. International Non-Governmental Organization. What do you think is going to happen in this sector in the next few years?
Well, it's so important that all of you are continuing to support us, because what we've seen is many nonprofits are going under as government and other support diminishes, as they can't get their message out as much anymore because of social media. When problems happen, you don't see it in the news like we had before. Was just talking yesterday to a former bishop of North Dakota who told me that Lutheran Social Services of North Dakota had closed. You know, these are institutions that have been around for literally
Love them too.
decades and decades and decades. So it's really hurting the fact that we've decided as a country to put less money towards domestic and humanitarian programs. That's a choice that we make. I'm not getting political about that. What I want you to know is there's something you can do about it, right? That's okay. The rest of us need just to step in and do something. So that's what Lutheran World Relief is focusing on, which is how can we step into that gap. And it's a big gap. And what we're also trying to do is be much more efficient. So what I'm hopeful about the nonprofit sector is we're going to get a lot smarter. Not just asking someone else for some money, but how can we partner? How can we partner with banks and corporations and other institutions and foundations to try to fill this need in new ways in community organizations? Just yesterday, or actually it was Friday, we signed an agreement with EcoBank, which is a bank in West Africa, to work together with us on the poorest farmers in that community in Cote d'Ivoire. Because they want farmers who are bankable. Well, none of these are because they're so poor, but Lutheran World Relief is working with them to help them to grow more, to learn how to be better farmers, and the bank is going to support us in doing that so that as they get better, they can actually start being bankable customers. That's a 2-4 win, right? And then the people become part of that prosperous community there. So we're going to have to be more creative in this process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. So let's watch the final video. It's only about 1.5 minutes. Is that okay if we tee it up? And we'll get to some questions in just a little
While
bit.
they're teeing that up, if you can just wait 1 second. You know, you asked me about what other things came to mind as stories are bringing it to life. And I was watching that first video, and it just reminded me so starkly because I had forgotten. Do any of you remember the earthquakes in Turkey? You remember hearing about that? These just unbelievable, devastating earthquakes, one right after the other in southern Turkey. Well, Lutheran World Relief was there within 24 hours. I traveled there within a couple of weeks to see what was going on. And I have to say, as I mentioned, I spent 2 years in Iraq working in some of the worst situations, watching bombed out buildings and villages and everything else during the middle of that war. But I had seen nothing like the devastation that natural disasters can reap on a community like an earthquake. These buildings were actually just not, you saw some in the early videos, probably didn't notice, but when I saw it again, it was shocking. Just rubble. You know, people were living in those things when it happened, and it just buried in these buildings. And we came in and started helping those communities. What was also touching about that, Kathi, was these were mostly Syrians that were living in these poor apartment buildings. as Syrian refugees. So they had already had to come to southern Turkey from Syria because of conflict and war, moved their family, finally got themselves settled and found some way to serve the community there and make enough money to get an apartment, and then the earthquake comes and they're without, homeless again. I can't tell you what it meant to them with your support that we were able to create communities there, tent communities mostly, but then we started creating these little mobile homes, tiny little, but they had their own houses again. And it was because of your support that we were able to do that and do so quickly. And these people who just felt like God had forsaken them remembered that God loved them, right? I can't tell you how important it is, if you want to send God's love into the world, to start out where their needs are, right? Because that's where they feel first forgotten by God. And so by bringing them some housing, some food, some shelter, clean water, you reminded them that there is still hope out there and there's people that care about them. So I just wanted to share that story because it reminded me of that.
That's great. So let's try.
At Corus International, we believe everyone must have access to life's fundamentals. A safe place to live, nutritious food, quality health care, knowledge to grow, and an income to sustain it all. We call these the 5 fundamentals, and they are the foundation for well-being and the foundation for prosperous nations. When even one is missing, the result can be catastrophic today and for generations to come. Corus is your partner for developing and strengthening every one of the 5 fundamentals. We are a family of organizations and businesses with wide-ranging and specialized expertise and capabilities, including global public health leader, IMA World Health, international development and aid organization, Lutheran World Relief, education and digital solutions for development consultancy, CGA Technologies, impact investing firm, Ground Up Investing, and direct trade company, Farmers Market Brands. Together, the Corus family is unwavering in our commitment to delivering solutions that create cycles of success, passing prosperity from one generation to the next. We are building a world where the 5 fundamentals are in reach of everyone, where we can all thrive together.
Anything you want to comment on?
At Corus International,
The family?
Yeah, I think we've showed you this video because some people have heard the word Corus International and they've heard Lutheran World Relief, and we didn't want you to get confused. Lutheran World Relief is part of a family called Corus International. And why? Because when I started leading Corus International 10 years ago, I felt we had to do more. The problems in the world were so big and so complex that we weren't going to solve these by ourselves. One of the things I noticed, my first trips to Niger, a very poor country in the Sahel in Western Africa, we were doing a program that you maybe have heard about from some of our mailings to you. It's where we help these community rural farmers with giving them sheep, right? And they take 2 sheep, you start with just 2, and then pretty soon the whole village can have sheep because they have babies, and they pass on the babies to the next family, and on it goes till the whole community has sheep. What's fantastic about that is they get milk from those sheep that provides nutrients to those children, many of who are malnourished, and starts dealing with that. They also over time have income because in this Muslim country, sheep are really important for the holidays of Ramadan, and so they will be able to sell that sheep, and then they invest that in their little farm, and they become much more prosperous and find their way out of the cycle of poverty. The thing that I noticed about that trip, though, the program was working well, but they wanted to show me the health clinic. They walked me over to this mud hut, had 2 tin roofs on top of it, and we're so proud of this building, but there was nothing in it. There was a table, a couple of chairs, no medicines, no healthcare worker, nothing. And so in reality, they were proud of their building because it was the nicest building there, but it wasn't a health clinic. And I asked, what happens when somebody gets sick? And they said, well, they have to go about 100 kilometers to the local regional health center for that area. The problem is they don't have cars. They don't even have horses. They don't have donkeys. They don't have carts. So to get somebody there, they're going to have to sell all they have pretty much and find someone who's going to come in and transport, first of all, their mom or dad who's sick to that hospital. And by the time they're done, because they often have to pay for your medicines, they'll be completely broke again. And it reminded me that these problems these people are facing are much more than just not growing enough food. or not having a meal tomorrow. It's connected to what's happening in the environment, whether you have clean water, whether you have enough water to grow your stuff. It's connected to whether you have health care. It's connected to where your kids get an education. All of these things are together. And so we started this journey 10 years ago, and Kathi has been an important part of that. We realized we had to have specialized support in each one of these areas so we could address these problems in a much more holistic way. But why create that yourself when there's other organizations out there that are already good at? Why not come together in a family of specialized? Lutheran World Relief has always been good at poverty reduction, that raising incomes and humanitarian response. IMA World Health has had 50 years of helping in the health space. The cool thing about that is Lutheran World Relief was a founding member of IMA World Health. We came together with the Protestant, mainline Protestants, Episcopalians, Methodists, United Church of Christ, Presbyterians. We all had missionary doctors overseas. They all needed support by getting medicines and supplies and support and resources. So we came together as a community to do that. Most of the other churches had wandered away from IMA World Health. They had their own programs, or they had money problems. Lutheran World Relief had stuck with them. And so they came to us and said, why don't we join together? And you were part of that process. We came together into one family. We then realized we needed impact investing. I talked to you about the importance of business ending poverty. That's what ground up investing is. We needed direct trade to get coffee here, to get farmers better prices and stuff. So you might have farmers market coffee here. We launched that company. And last, we know we need technology. I expect everybody in this room understands that if we can find ways to do this cheaper and better and faster with technology, how cool is that? We've done it. In Latin America, farmers now, instead of waiting a year or two for an extension agent to come by and show them what's wrong with their plants that are wilting, they can take a picture of it, put it in our app on their little phone and find out, oh, that's rust. And here's what you should do. You should do X, Y, and Z. And they can actually even have a group chat with other farmers in their area. So we're using technology that way. But that's what I was talking about. Nonprofits have to be innovative in these times.
Yeah.
But if we are, we can do so much more with the money that you give us.
Yeah. It's been a thrill for me to go to Washington, D.C. 3 times a year and just learn about the world, right? It's so fascinating. And as you can tell, I've been on 9 of his 10 years. Daniel is very visionary. And so it's really been a joy to watch you. Even when USAID cut 52% of your funding, you didn't sit back. You and your team just pivoted and created a new plan, and the organization is thriving. I'm very impressed with that as an organizational behavior professor, because that's hard to do, right? That is really hard to do, whether you work in a corporate environment or a nonprofit environment. So thank you for your leadership. What I'd like to do now is just let some of you ask questions for about 10 minutes, if that's okay. And I forgot to say, we do have a drawing at the end, and it might involve chocolate or coffee. So that could be good. So does anybody have a question? And this is my microphone right here. I'll come to you. Anything cross your mind?
Any question? Yeah, anything's good. Don't
Okay.
be shy. Yeah. He's a pastor. They can hear him.
He's got a pastor voice. Yeah.
Why don't you stand up, though, so that they can hear you?
Sorry, just a comment. Throughout this wonderful presentation, there's been a mourning that's been sitting on that cross up there, and the symbolism strikes me. It's a sign of peace, but it's also mourning, for the world and for everything that is happening in the world, and it's what makes Lutheran World Relief so much more important to think about those things that we can bring peace through our gifts and through our time. So.
I appreciate that so much. For if you couldn't hear, he was just saying there was a mourning dove behind us on the cross, reminding us both of the symbol of peace, but also of mourning. And I understood you mean mourning, not like a mourning, but the grieving for people who are suffering in the world. So true. Thank you for that comment. And I have to tell you, of all the things I've worked in my life, peace is, you can't do anything without peace, right? And it starts with a sense of peace and security. You saw the 5 fundamentals. We kind of came to this in a while. One of those is place. If you don't feel like you have a safe place to live, we found the other pieces are really struggles to get your livelihood going, get enough food to eat, get your health in place. And so this couldn't be more important than reminding us about peace in the world and praying for peace, Pastor.
Thank you for noticing. I couldn't see it on the back of my head, Brian. Yeah. I would like to introduce Z from LSS of Minnesota. She's a guest this morning. We're so glad you're here.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a lovely experience to be here with all of you. I feel welcomed. I feel embraced. So thank you so much. I am so happy to hear about all the work you're doing internationally. I too come from a country that is torn apart by war. I too, at one point in my life, was a refugee and didn't have stability, and it was due to work like yours that I was able to gain education and a home and a stable life. So I am so happy that you're doing this work. And as the world seemingly becomes more and more challenging with everything happening, kind of what I wanted to know is, how are you and your organization navigating some of those international challenges, whether it be changes in laws or whether it be changes in the rules in how nonprofits operate? I know from our work for Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota that with the administration change, a lot of our work was impacted, and we had to navigate some troubled waters, so to speak. So how are you sort of navigating some of those international challenges in your work?
Yeah, wow, what a great question. You and I have to travel together, I think. Yeah. We got great stories, yeah.
When you said you lived in Greece, I lived in Greece.
Oh, well, it's great. I'm looking forward to talking to more. And Lutheran Social Services, got to give them a big plug, what they do in the United States. And in fact, I'm going to get back to your question, but I'm going to say one of the things Lutheran World Relief is doing now, and you may have seen it, we're getting into domestic humanitarian response, because the challenges have gotten so big here at home for some of our communities that we felt we needed to also respond there, and Lutherans wanted us to be there. So we were at the California wildfires, we were at the hurricanes in the East Coast, and we were in the Texas floods. We want to do more, and what we're trying to do is figure out how to partner with Lutheran Social Services, who is the grassroots organization on the ground that has the offices close to the people and knows these people. So I hope you'll continue to support the domestic humanitarian crisis response. How we deal with this current environment, NZ, it's a good question, and everybody has to come to their own terms with that. For us at Lutheran World Relief, our belief is that we have some fundamental values that we have to stick to, but we have to speak to people in a way that everybody understands and feels included, if you understand what I'm saying. So our goal is stay focused on what our mission is, which is serving the most vulnerable communities, the ones in the greatest need, and helping them find a way out of their situation through their own capabilities, their own amazing, like you did, and all they need is just a little bit of support. They don't need a handout, they need a hand up, as people say. It's so true. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we don't get in the middle of the politics of this. It's tearing the country apart, it's tearing our communities apart, and it's not serving anybody, right? And so our goal is, we know conservatives, far right, and we know far left care about people suffering. And all we have to do is get that message to them in a way that doesn't hit a hot button. That's one of their things where they go off and they got something to think about. And we can do that. And I hope you felt that today in how we're doing it. When you tell the stories, when you tell what's going on, when you say at Lutheran World Relief, we're going to be here long before, we were doing this long before we got government assistance. We'll do it long after government assistance. But these people are suffering. We want to tell you about them, and we want you to help. Help either by giving us money, help by, supporting foreign assistance in the budget, help in any way you can. But we don't want to get in the midst of these things. I know some of these hot buttons are out there in the social justice space and the human dignity space. How we deal with that is, we're not an organization that is trying to promote a specific social justice issue. But I can tell you, we're going to serve someone who's poor in Costa Rica or Honduras or Guatemala, whether or not they are disabled, whether or not they decide they want to designate themselves in a different gender way, or whatever's going on. We're not there to change the world that way. We're there to see everybody with God's love, with dignity, and treat them equally to everybody else in that same community. And I think that's how we do it. And I think most conservatives and liberals all agree with that. If we could just treat everybody with God's love and dignity, they're not going to hold that against Lutheran World Relief. If you want Lutheran Relief in the middle of that social argument right now in the United States, we're going to destroy the organization, right? Because we're going to lose so many of our supporters. So we don't get involved in advocacy on these issues in the Capitol Hill or other places. We care about human dignity, we care about God's love, and that's where we're focusing on, and we think that applies to everybody regardless of their circumstances.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Other questions? Any questions? Anybody have any interesting country that they love or care about, or any stories of something that you've done that you feel good about, a child you sponsored or something, or you work with? I also love to hear you've worked with other programs that you've supported. What did you love about those programs? What do you love about your when you do your charitable giving?
I'm
Anybody
looking at
brave
Kirk.
enough to tell me what
I'm
they
looking at Kirk and
what got
Judy.
them excited?
Can we just?
One of the things I noticed on the video was a blackboard outside with some children. Can you talk a little bit about the education of children and how you're involved in helping children around the world, knowing that that makes such a difference to the children in their future?
Oh, that's just, I think Kathi planted you in this audience. Because actually, Kathi has helped me on this. And I want to give credit to Alex, my wife here as well. Alex and I were traveling in Texas and doing donor visits down there. And one thing we noticed is how much we do care about the children. We do care about and how the connection be poverty and education. We were talking about how girls get married in South Sudan at like 12 or 13. And one of our subsidiaries, CGA Technology, using technology has helped 1 million more kids get in school in South Sudan. And that, when those girls are in school, they usually don't get married, right? And they usually don't get pregnant. And so huge implications for reducing poverty and helping families, especially, and women's health and young girls' health. So we were talking about that, and Alex just noticed, she said, all the women in this room, they get this, right? They get this. Your men, you're talking about your farmers and all this stuff, that's great, but they see this and it wakes them up. And so we started talking about how important that was, and we need to do more in the education space. So a year and a half ago, we started something called the Girls in School Initiative, and we started in Sierra Leone, where we had already been working with the Ministry of Education for 10 years. But we said, what would happen if we started trying to get Lutherans connected to girls? So for now, for $29 a month, you can help a girl stay in school. And what we see, we've done 1,000 girls this last year. We're now going to expand that into Côte d'Ivoire, into West Africa. And I am so excited about that. And what we're doing also is using data to help them understand and see the differences that happen to these girls and to the communities and to the families if you can keep those girls in school. Really exciting stuff. One thing we noticed, though, when I talked about the complex nature of the problem, it's not enough just to say you can go to school. If mom and dad don't have enough money to feed their kids, that girl is going to stay home. So you got to address the issue of the poverty in the family. You got to address the health issue. If this girl gets pregnant when she's going to that school, which happens to a lot of them, because a lot of them have to go a distance from their home, and they're staying with a relative or something else, and they find a boy to help them feel protected in that space, and then they get pregnant again at 13 or 12. It happens all the time. So you need somebody with the health space supporting them. So what we're doing with this Girls in School project is making sure we have wraparound services around these girls to make sure they and their family have enough support that it takes. And that's one of the challenges with charity. And I want you, as all smart charitable givers, to think about that. If you just give somebody something one time, but you haven't kind of addressed the root problems that are going on in that situation, you're going to be helpful. There is nothing wrong with charity. God bless all of you who would give a hand out to somebody who needs it when they're at a corner or something. But if you can actually give your money in ways that ends up ending that problem, that person is going to be a contributing community person in the future. They're going to help their family, they're going to help their kids, they're going to help generations. They're going to be. We have a little slide, I don't have it here, but I wish I did, but it's probably somewhere online, that talks about our model of how we do our work. We first help people survive. And you just got to take care of that. That's that charity you're talking about. But then you help them to thrive. So they're just getting enough that they can help this kids stay in school. It's not just surviving by having enough to eat. It's going to be their future. They're going to be educated. They're going to do something. But what we found is that when you stick with these communities, they get to a point where they share. They start sharing their knowledge and what they're doing. Remember Gabriel up there? He's in the share category now. He got help from just survival. He then started to thrive, and now he's sharing it. We don't even have to do that. The communities do that. That's what's exciting about what I love about our work, about Lutheran World Relief, and about the support that you're giving, right? It multiplies. You give it once, but your dollar, I guarantee you, gets multiplied dozens of times.
Thank you. Well, I think it is time for us to collect your cards. If we could have Dave and Kevin do that. Why don't you pass them to the middle? Did you get to fill out a card, Jerry? Not yet, huh? Okay, you might need a pen, right? Yeah, or maybe, yeah. But if you would be so kind to fill them out real fast.
Does everybody have a pen? I have a couple of pens here in my pocket.
Thank you. That's great. You're good, you're good. Great. Here, you need one? Oh, you've got one. Take your time. Yeah, thank you very much. You got one too, thank you. We appreciate you showing up today. Thank you. And where's the tech guy? I don't know the representative from the technology company, but boy, he really worked well with you guys in the back corner. Could you give him a hand? Is he still here? He's left, poor guy. Anyway, thanks to those of you in the back corner for making this work. I was hoping we'd get to show the videos, and we did. So thanks. Thanks a lot. Yep, good.
Okay, Kevin, I think she's got some over here. Or do you have all of them, or?
Here, I do have some. Thanks, Kevin.
If you ever want to talk about your philanthropic giving and you want to hear more, Dave and Kevin Bonney are both based in the Twin Cities. We actually have a little office here because there's so many Lutherans. You can't throw a stone and not run into a Lutheran here. And so please reach out to Kevin Bonney here, who's our representative for this region, and help support you in your giving. Also, we do have what I love is legacy giving, where you can leave something in your estate for Lutheran World Relief. I just think it's a beautiful way, right, of spreading after your life here so much good in the world. So give some thought to that as well.
So Bob and I have done that, and now we're talking about doing it at Trinity. Where's Adam, right? We're talking about getting a conversation going about getting Trinity in our estate plans too, so that we can love all of these organizations that we want to see sustained. So with that, okay, do you guys want to make a drawing? Can you do it pretty quick here? I want to be respectful of
You want to make sure he gets that last card.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to miss anybody. So I know the Masters doesn't start till 1. You have time for lunch. Master starts 1 to 6. It's very exciting at our house. Very exciting. Where's Bob Tunheim? Oh, he's home already. That's right. Oh, chocolate for... Okay, that's great. Oh, I think you should.
Okay.
I worship with these people next week.
I don't trust any of us up here.
That's great.
To my beautiful life partner.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alexandra. Okay. I'll let the vice chairman of the board read this. Sorry. We're the first test of this new system.
I don't have my glasses on.
Okay. All right. This is Chris Holm. Is Chris here? There we go. Congratulations, Chris. You get a wonderful gift of coffee and chocolate. Thank you for these cards. It means a lot to be able to stay in touch with you while Kathy's doing that. Did want to let you know a little bit about what you can do. Becoming a faithful neighbor. Want to remind you, your Netflix is costing $22 a month, Amazon Prime $15, YouTube $72. For $29 a month, you can help a girl go to school or stay in school in Sierra Leone, or now it's going to be Cote d'Ivoire. We love it when you do something like that. We love all your types of gifts that you give, but we wanted to make it easy for you. It really helps us if you're a monthly giver. In some ways, if you can just get that on there so you don't think about it, so we don't have to remind you, because I know you want to be givers, that makes a big difference to us. We also, you talked about quilts and kits and other kinds of things. I know it's not really quilters anymore here, but we do love the kits. So we hope your church will keep doing that kind of stuff for us as well. It makes a big difference. We used all that stuff in that earthquake in Turkey. I'm going to use school supply kits in those girls in school stuff. So anything your church does there is great.
Could be a future project.
We are so grateful to this church. You guys punch above your weight. Well above your weight for the size of your church. It means a lot, and you guys should be very proud of putting your faith in action in the world. That's what I think true Christianity means. Back to you, Kathi, to close this out.
Just give him a hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.